Chapter 9, Truly Amazing, 2009. My deepest desire was to see my oldest sister Modesty. It had been 16 years since the last time we saw each other. I thanked God for putting Modesty into my life. Although our childhood did not allow us to grow up or play together, we formed a spiritual bond over the course of our adult lives. We are so much alike at times that it feels like we're spiritual twins, and to think it's pretty scary to believe that God made us both from the same seed, our father Jonathan. I reflected on the times when my mother was alive. She was not happy about my relationship with my sister. Her comments were totally unwarranted, and she insisted on planting a negative seed into my mind that Modesty was no good and to never trust her. As time passed after my mother's death, I was able to reconnect with my sister. I made plans to meet Modesty in San Diego during the spring of 2009. I was excited about the reunion and doing the things that sisters do when they spend time together. It was my wish to sit and enjoy my sister's wisdom and absorb the memories that hold the fabric to our sisterhood together. During that time, Emery was making plans to meet his son TJ in Las Vegas. Their birthdays are one day apart in April, and it was TJ's idea to celebrate his 21st birthday in Viva Las Vegas, the city that never sleeps. Emery called me to discuss his traveling plans and wanted to know if I'd like to join him and TJ. I didn't want to intrude on their trip, so I declined by saying I couldn't afford to. Initially, I had plans to accompany Emery in Las Vegas sometime in May. His company was planning to fly him there to attend the Microsoft Management Summit annual conference. As Emery got closer to finalizing his company plans for Las Vegas, the trip was declined. He was given the news that there wasn't enough money in the budget to accommodate more than one co-worker. Therefore, he wasn't elected this time to attend the conference. He wanted to know if I would reconsider to join him and TJ in Las Vegas, and that's when I accepted. Through the many prayers and visions I had about being married again, I sought God on the matter about the trip to Las Vegas. I wondered, was this the year and season that I would get married? My sister and Emery had talked on the phone over a period of time, which allowed him to get acquainted with her. It wasn't formal, but that was a start. I wanted him to know that there was someone in my life that loved me unconditionally. My parents were deceased, and due to my past relationship with them, Emery wasn't missing out by never meeting them. Modesty felt that I needed to find a dress in case I was going to get married while in Las Vegas. I was nonchalant about it because I thought about how the setting was in my dream that I had at the altar. I thought it would take planning and lots of work to have what I had envisioned on the day when I got married. In the past, I remember daydreaming about flying to Las Vegas to get married, but after a few failed dating relationships, I lost the hope of having a Las Vegas marriage. Since the New Year's countdown, I did not fuss or pout about how things were aligning in my life. The day I was let go from my job, I felt extremely connected to fate. I think I was calm at that point because I was willing to embrace change. The closer the date came to flying to Las Vegas, Emery realized how I felt about having a wedding. However, I understood that he didn't want a big ceremony, but I didn't want to be surprised by the seat of my pants wearing a pair of jeans and t-shirt kind of thing. I wanted an intimate small ceremony that included Modesty and all our children. Once we reached the decision to get married in Las Vegas, I immediately rushed out to the mall to shop for a dress I had 7 days to find the dress that would hold dear to my moment when I would say, I do. One Sunday after church, Emery and I drove to 4 malls. Although it was not the traditional thing to do with your fiance, in my case, I didn't have anyone that I felt close enough to assist me in such little time. The clock was ticking, and the search for a dress was not looking good. As I reminisced back to the days when I was single, I would get prophecies that I was going to get married. I would spend hours trying on several wedding gowns at Jessica McClinton, House of Brides, and the wedding store. I wanted to believe that I was walking by faith. I needed to reassure myself by doing the things that painted a clear picture of what I prayed for. At the time, I didn't have weight issues. The fairy tale of getting married sometimes never looks perfect as it appears in the movies or turns out the way you may envision. There was so many small details that I needed to handle. I suddenly remembered how I felt about flying. I'm an extreme mess if the flight is bumpy, but I didn't have time to get anxious about it because I felt some comfort in knowing that God ordained the steps that I would take. As I made plans on which chapel we would get married, I started packing my clothes and arranging the accessories that I wanted to take with me. I felt excited that God was confirming to me that it was my time. There I was, walking around in amazement at how things were being divinely put together, which caused me to be humble and allow God to work everything out. I waited so long for this moment to happen in my life when I would get remarried. I can't begin to describe how I felt about knowing that I was getting married and how I followed the dream that I had about getting married. It really didn't matter how small or big the size of my wedding was going to be. The material things were trivial. I did not put so much emphasis on the glitz and glamour of having a wedding. I wanted to keep things as simple as possible because I saw the bigger picture, and that was sharing my life and destiny with Emery. As a matter of fact, I felt relieved in knowing that my life was still in God's will. My soul cried quietly because I knew that God was sanctioning everything and walking with me on my journey. He will be a father, mother, brother, sister, friend, lawyer, doctor, etc. The thought of having God's blessings is indelible. We left on a Thursday morning, which was Emery's birthday. Once the plane landed in Las Vegas, we immediately thanked God for a safe flight. When we made it to the curbside to catch our taxi to the Bally's Hotel, the sun was shining bright and the heat made us forget all about the windy city. While riding on the shuttle, the closer we got to the strip, I tried to release all of my anxieties about the future. My life seemed as if I was reading a novel on someone else's life, and I had the chance to see parts of how God was going to unfold each chapter. At the time, the way things were happening, it did feel like a dream come true. Especially having a prayer manifest before your eyes was surreal. As I pondered, I was sure that it was an answered prayer from God, and why do I doubt His mercies? I concluded that all I needed to do was breathe and walk the path because the light was illuminating the way. We checked into the hotel and had a chance to absorb the atmosphere before hitting the evening buffet. While walking the strip, there were plenty of buffets to choose from. It really didn't matter where we ate. I just wanted to eat some great food. The next morning, after we ate breakfast at Harrah's, we caught the bus downtown to get our marriage license. There were so many couples waiting in line from all over the United States and other countries as well. We met a couple from the Bahamas that we had a short conversation with. While we were downtown, we decided to see the chapel and confirm our reservations. According to the address, we were only a few blocks away from the chapel, As we got closer to the address, we noticed that the area became residential. There was a big empty parking lot with rocks and gravel next to the chapel that sat near the corner of the block. The opposite side of the street was an apartment building with graffiti written on the front. I started feeling apprehensive about the chapel. However, it was too late for that because we had already paid the money to have our ceremony there. As we walked toward the door, the wedding coordinator drove up in the wedding limo. At that point, I was anxious to see the inside of the chapel to get an idea of how the room looked. The staff was pleasant and kind as they addressed our concerns. I felt a sense of ease in learning that it was a family-owned business. We confirmed our wedding for Saturday, then we toured our room. The room was too large and the carpet was stained. I was concerned about having nice pictures. I could tell that the room was run down and I felt uncomfortable about it. I asked if I could see another room. We ended up switching to a smaller room. It set an intimate mood, and the color scheme was gold and silver, which matched my dress and shoes. I was happy at that point because there was nothing more to expect. Later that evening, we were expecting some of the children to arrive in town. We weren't able to have all the children attend, and I felt sad about it, but I planned on having it videotaped and taking lots of pictures to share. TJ, our son, called Emery to inform us when his flight would arrive in Las Vegas that evening. We still had not heard anything regarding what time the girls would arrive, so we amused ourselves and enjoyed the rest of the evening, sightseeing and eating. The next day was Saturday. Sometime during the afternoon, we heard a knock at the door. It was Bridget, our daughter, and TJ along with their friends. I was relieved in knowing that I had just finished curling my hair and applying my makeup. As I recollect, early that morning I woke in prayer. I had anxiety about being a stepmom. The role was something that I had never done before. I wanted to be accepted and have peace and harmony with Emery's kids. I tried to conceal my emotions about it, but the closer we came to saying I do, it started to show. Emery was able to detect how I was feeling and assured me that it was going to be fine. Everyone hugged each other, and Bridget gave me a tender hug. She greeted me as stepmom Naima. I felt instantly alive and accepted. My heart started pounding because I was getting closer to being Mrs. Emery Walker. While we were bonding and sharing our thoughts about Las Vegas, I noticed the time on the clock and thought about Modesty's flight landing. I knew the hour was getting close to getting dressed before that limo arrived. Once we made it down to the lobby, our other daughter Valerie was parking her car at the hotel's garage to meet us out front. Emery and I took pictures with our children before leaving for the wedding. The weather was beautiful as the sun beamed brightly. The temperature was close to 82 degrees. The limo driver finally arrived. While riding in the limo, one of my nieces from Alabama called to see if I was married yet. It felt truly amazing because she remembered the times when I first told her about my dream in Emery. She encouraged me by believing that Emery was the man that God had for me. I think she believed it too, because she reminded me when I was in high school how I exhibited an incredible faith. When I spoke about having something, I eventually received it. I never knew that faith takes work and patience. After arriving at the chapel, Modesty and my niece were there waiting to greet us. I was feeling butterflies because it had been 16 years since seeing my sister. She looked beautiful, and her smile indicated that she was extremely happy for me. My heart was full of joy as we embraced each other. I was even more excited in knowing that God had blessed me to have my sister by my side to witness my special day. I remember the times when we would talk on the phone for hours about my life experiences, the troubles I had, and sharing some of my hopes and dreams. As we walked into the chapel room where the ceremony was being performed, the music was playing softly while everyone took their seats. I looked into Emery's eyes as he gazed into mine. The minister stood in front as we recited our vows. It went fast. The last words I remembered were, "You are now husband and wife." Suddenly, the song At Last by Etta James was playing. The moment was magical, like a scene in a romantic movie. Everyone gathered together to take pictures outside. I basked in the moment while absorbing the sun. It was breathtaking to exhale and release all the wonder and live in the moment. We made arrangements to have our wedding dinner celebration with our guests and family at the Monte Carlo. It was a small, intimate evening that captured an essence of peace and harmony. It was nice to have everyone together talking, joking, and relaxing while we feast. I was at ease in knowing that I had crossed over another threshold to starting a joint journey of purpose and destiny with the man that God had ordained for my life. While we were flying back home to Chicago on our second flight, the stewardess walked over to where we were sitting. She said that there was an aura around Emery and me that compelled her to say something. I immediately told her that Emery and I were newlyweds. Then she started disclosing some personal things that she was going through in her life. I asked if she was a believer, and she said yes. I began to speak to her about God, sharing briefly some of my testimony. The more I witnessed, the more she became emotional and wanted to hear more. She said that at first she felt that Emery was a pastor and I was a first lady. We both looked at each other and then smiled, but in my mind I thought, to God be the glory. As we got closer to landing, we exchanged business cards. She had to break away to assist her partner with letting the other passengers off the flight. I observed her from my seat as I wondered about her faith. I know that God is not a respecter of persons. I read in the Bible, the book of Acts, chapter 10, verse 34, that He does not show partiality or favoritism. He can bless anyone who has the faith to ask Him and has belief in his or her heart. Sometimes it seems like He's not there or listening, but through faith and patience, He will answer. Emery felt amazed by what the stewardess spoke about us. There was something different about her when I first noticed her back in Atlanta. She sings with a gospel female group. She exhibited poise and professionalism as she spoke. I told Emery that was not the first time I had met a stranger who said that there was an aura around me. I believe it's God's favor and protection that surrounds me. Since returning home after the honeymoon, 2 weeks later, I flew out to San Diego to meet Modesty and two of my nieces. I got there a day early. The first day, the weather was beautiful. I checked in my hotel at the Bristol House, located downtown. The lobby's architect was lovely, and the atmosphere was upbeat and inviting as I strolled through the lobby. Shortly after visiting my room and calling Emery, I walked over to Westfield Horton's Plaza. It was an outdoor mall. Each store and restaurant had its separate entry. I felt like a tourist as I slowly walked past the townspeople. I became fascinated as I walked the levels to find a place where I could sit and enjoy some lunch. The next morning, one of my nieces that live in Las Vegas arrived early. She caught the shuttle to my hotel. There were maps of the city's attraction at the concierge desk, but I was eager to walk over to Horton's Plaza again. We decided to sit outside at Starbucks for a while to absorb the California sun while we talked about life. It was a treat walking down on Fifth Avenue. I think I really enjoyed looking in the different boutiques and jewelry shops. The weather was so nice and my soul was at peace. The water and West Coast air, along with the sunshine, was uplifting to my spirit. We hung out all day strolling around town. I realized that it was getting cooler the closer it came to evening. We finished our evening at a burger grill eatery. The happy hour was an opportunity for us to order more food for less the price, but little did I know that I would pay for those extra pounds. I completely forgot about my weight loss plan. The next morning was Friday, and it was cloudy outside. It did change my mood. I love sunshine because I'm a vibrant person majority of the time. I planned according to the weather by packing an umbrella in case it rained. Modesty's flight landed late Thursday night. However, her company switched hotels after I had made my hotel reservation downtown. She stayed at another hotel across town. She flew in with my other niece and her grandbaby. My niece drove to my hotel to pick us up. She and her baby girl looked so beautiful. We were happy to see each other. We knew that our visit and time together would be short because my sister had to attend a work conference on Friday and on Saturday morning. That evening, when Modesty met us after her conference, we talked for a while. Then we made plans to have dinner downtown San Diego near Gaslamp Quarter District. Since it was for adults, it was not easy to decide on some things, but we didn't sit still, that's for sure. I enjoyed the lights and busy atmosphere around Gaslamp. I knew that was where I wanted to spend the rest of my time while there. That part of the city holds so much flair, and on the weekend, I can see how it can get crowded. It's kind of like your typical major metropolitan downtown that attracts tourists. The theaters are there. The Maritime Museum has one of the world's finest collection of historic ships, and where some upscale restaurants and boutiques compete for business. There's always something to learn about each city. It has its own culture, and depending on the history, the natives will come out to celebrate and do everything to keep its legacy alive. I enjoy visiting places where the history lives on. Since it was my last evening in San Diego, we had planned to stay out late. We walked at a slow pace as the streets got crowded. People were dancing and playing instruments along the sidewalks for donations and religious cause. The festivities went on for hours, and there were all kinds of eateries serving people inside and outdoors. I had an early flight the next morning, and sleep was not an option for me. We stayed out past 1 a.m. I was tired by the time I got back to my sister's hotel, but I didn't actually sleep because I cannot sleep if the room is not dark and quiet. The trip was sweet, fast, and short. It was good to see my family, but it wasn't as much fun as I was hoping it would be. My sister had to share her affection and attention between 3 other adults. I was disappointed some because there wasn't enough time to enjoy any relaxing. However, we will get our chance to have a spa weekend together someday. We understand each other, and the fact that we live in 2 separate worlds that are wide apart, that's what makes our bond special.